And that is what I see very often. That when folks don't recognize what they call this sense of loneliness, it's just a transition. That's really what it is. It's this transition period. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bridging the Divide podcast. I'm your host, Rolando Bonilla. When I first started this show, one of the things I wanted to do was to develop frameworks and conversations to help you along your journey. What I didn't anticipate, and you may have heard me say this in the past, is the fact that many of you continue to send me questions, or when you run into me, ask me questions. And the answering of these questions has really been the heart and soul of what we have going on here. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And most importantly, thank you for asking questions. It's helped me in terms of thought process. And it also makes me feel as if this community that we're building is actually giving you some value. But in that spirit, there was a question I just ran into on a recent trip down to the Los Angeles area. Someone I was working with asked me a question that, as I thought about it, I realized was a very direct question of a form of question I have been getting all along. I just didn't recognize it. And the question for me was, Rolando, how do you prevent yourself from feeling lonely in this journey of building a business? And at the time, I remember when I received that question, I jumped right into, well, you make sure you have a network of friends and you keep moving and you talk to each other. And then it really hit me in terms of what the underlying question was really getting to. So what I'll do is talk about it from my vantage point and kind of my experiences and really help you understand that. So for me, when I started my company, all of us began kind of on an equal playing field in terms of, we've got an idea, we want to start that business, here are the steps we need to take. But the reality of it is, just because you both have an idea or others have ideas doesn't mean that all of these ideas are going to ever turn into something. And very often that not turning into something, in my experience, has been just candidly just never taking that leap. So for those of you that do take that leap, my experience was that as you really dive into your work, dive into building this thing, it does consume you. So, for those of you out there that argue about whether hustle culture is good or it's not, I'm not here to get into that argument, but I am here to say that for all of us, that journey of turning an idea into a reality, in my experience, from what I've seen around me and from myself, is very consuming. And so with that, you also notice that consuming of your time, your energy, your resources, there does begin a separation between yourself and those in your circle. What you end up seeing time over time is that as you grow, there's distance happening. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that, they're a problem because they're not growing with you. I'm talking about the growth you've chosen. They very well may be on another growth path that has nothing to do with what you're doing, but within what you're doing, you start feeling a little bit of a disconnect. You start feeling as if you are desperately in need of more, but you're not getting that more from where you're at. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's a good indicator that you're moving along, that you're progressing, that you're doing things that are no longer normal to your group and now becoming more normal to your new normal. You just don't know what that group looks like. Again, to be clear, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your group. I'm just saying you're on a different journey than perhaps they are. So for me, I've been fortunate enough to really be surrounded around a lot of high achievers, a lot of people who go after things. But part of that was also by design, right? Like in my case, ever since I can remember, I've always gone out of my way to find people that were doing things that I enjoyed or doing things that they were successful at that I could see myself doing in order to learn about how they moved, how they operated, how they thought. I never had a problem picking up the phone and calling folks like that and saying, hey, Help me understand where you're at. In fact, just last week, I was at a very important tech meeting, and I kept tapping the person to my left, asking him questions about pretty much everything. Uh, that's always kind of been the way I've operated. So because of that, I've never really fallen into this view that I'm out here kind of sailing in the ocean by myself. However, I've had moments, of course, as you're growing, as you're learning new experiences, as you're being introduced to new things. If you're not actively looking for folks that understand your journey, then you will feel that way. That's a normal feeling. I think what's important is that you recognize that you're feeling it, that you recognize why you're feeling it. And here's where the being on different paths does become a problem. If you're not paying attention to it and not building an infrastructure to support you as you take these new steps, and let me be clear, by support, I don't mean people who are going to come and do it for you. I don't mean people who are going to come in and check in on you. I'm a firm believer that the cavalry is never coming. You have to do it yourself. But people that you can call, people that you can connect with. And if you don't have any of those, books on people that you admire to help you kind of view their journey. For example, right now reading the biography of the founder of the Four Seasons Hotel. Great hotel. They're not sponsoring me in any way, although given how much time I spend there, sometimes I think I'm sponsoring them. And watch reading his story and reading the struggles and reading how very often in his struggles he was feeling a particular way. And so it's your job to find that support, because if you don't, whether it be through a book, whether it be through a podcast, whether it be preferably through friends and family that are moving in that direction, what will happen is that you're going to get into a space where you're doing things that your circle doesn't understand. And because your circle doesn't understand it, very often, although not malintentioned, let's say you can't go out on Friday night because you've got a big presentation to make on a Saturday morning. Yeah, that happens. Saturday, Sunday, no days off, right? That's real. And your friends say, "Hey, look, come hang out," and your response is, "No, I've got to go home early. I've got to prepare. I got a flight tomorrow." And their response, "Oh, come on, man, you're doing too much. You'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. Come hang out." And then you do hang out, and then you're not prepared for the next day. Those moments add up, and they add up fast, right? Particularly the beginning, where that addition and subtraction actually does impact you. You get enough of those nights where you just kind of dust off the next day, blow off the next day, and not worry about it. Pretty soon, you are farther from your goal. You are farther from getting to where you want to be, and actually a lot closer to quitting. And that is what I see very often, that when folks don't recognize what they call this sense of loneliness, it's just a transition. That's really what it is. This transition period. If you don't address that by finding that support group or that support, those tools to support you, books, podcasts, then you become more susceptible to not. I know for me, as I'm to this day, I am very obsessed about the things that I do. It does require a lot of me. I enjoy it though, right? Like I love it. I enjoy it. That doesn't mean that at times I don't, want to just say, fuck it, right? Like I'm taking the day off. And from time to time. I think structured and planned, it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. It's a necessary thing. But I'm always very clear that if I take steps like that, that I'm doing it on my terms, that I'm doing it within my plan, within my schedule, in order to ensure that I stay on my plan and on my schedule. So I think for those of you out there that are feeling as if you're on this journey by yourself, you're not, right? I mean, I'm a new entrant into this podcast space. There are others that have been doing it for a long time, whether it's myself, I hope it's me, subscribe, or someone else. There are now tools available to you to remind you of what you have to do. Um, but ignoring it is where it's problematic, because if you ignore it, then that feeling becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And now the mountain that you're trying to climb also gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is very often where I've seen people quit. And all of you know someone like this, right? How many of you know someone who, ooh, one day I'm gonna open up this club, or I'm gonna open up this restaurant, or now, because everyone wants to be in tech, I'm gonna do this new app. And you hear about it, but then when you actually ask them about the steps they're taking or have taken, very often the answer is zero. And that's because they never got beyond the whole competing against themselves and putting themselves in positions where they have to, make it much more difficult for them to just get on the field, start applying what knowledge you do have in order to find the gaps, and then find the knowledge that you don't have in order to make your idea an actual reality, right? So I think for me, one of the best pieces of advice I could give all of you is, when that happens, it's usually a good sign that you're doing it right. It's usually a good sign that you're moving in a direction. If you're in the same group for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and everything feels the exact same as it did on day one, we got a problem. uh, it's not a problem if that's what you want, but it is a problem if what you want is to build something like business, something that by nature is very volatile, not a guarantee, requires every aspect of you. It's funny, before I came into this room, I was on the phone with someone, and it was saying to, her, hey, look, bottom line is that in business, you have to be prepared to lose things, particularly when you're starting. I've lost people, I've lost fun opportunities, I have lost time, but I've also been able to offset that by being in a position now where I can invest time into the things that I want and the things that fulfill me as a, not just in business, but also as a person. But that doesn't happen overnight, right? That doesn't you happen without you feeling some level of growth that separates you out, right? That doesn't feel that doesn't happen without you acknowledging that it is okay for you to move out from your current situation, that it is okay for you to evolve, and that it is okay for you to be in a place that what you have in common, perhaps with the group that you started with, doesn't mean that they're bad, doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that you've taken it upon yourself to buy into this concept of, I'm going to jump into starting a business and going from idea to implementation to growth. That should consume a lot of your time when it's done right. I many years ago knew someone who, in fact, the family was so excited that he was going to start a business that um, they threw a party for him. And I'll never forget running into the family and asking about the status of the son's business, and hearing that things weren't going well. And I obviously was saddened, and I was asked for some advice, and I gave advice based on the answers I got. And the answer that I got was, he spends a lot of time with his friends, and he's able to manage his business from wherever he is. And I remember saying to myself, and eventually telling them, I think that's the problem. He wants to grow, he wants to build something, but he's still within the social circle of folks who are continue to do the things they've always done. Again, nothing wrong with that. But where there is something wrong with that is, if you make the choice to build something, then you're going to inevitably have to take a step to the side, to the front, to the back, away, to give yourself the space to actually build it out. You need to cut out the noise, right? You need to be in a position where the only thing you're hearing is the content and information and the conversations that you have to invest in order to turn this idea into reality. And so, unfortunately for him, the business didn't work out. And it didn't work out precisely because of that. You can't have these competing interests of you wanting growth and obsession, and then the competing interests of doing the same things with your social circle. Again, you could always come back to it. If they love you, they'll hold your place. You're going to be okay. And then you could probably do it better because of what you've built and perhaps of what they're building. But it does require that sense of leaving, having to leave town, having to very much go out there on your own and chart your own path. And so the best way, a long-winded way of getting to the answer in my mind, my experience, the best way to avoid that feeling of loneliness. Shout out to San Mateo County Supervisor David Canifer for his attack on loneliness. It happens by building a community of folks or a community of tools or a hybrid of both that allow for you to recognize that the insecurity that you're feeling, normal. I felt it. The fear that you're feeling, normal. I have felt it. The being lost, thinking you know what you're talking about and then realizing you don't, yeah, that's normal. I've been through it. The feeling of anger when things don't work out for you, yep, been there, done that. The feeling of, oh shit, this may be the moment it all falls apart and my idea doesn't actually happen. Been there, done that. And what you're going to find is that everyone, whether it's myself, whether it's the tech company, a local taqueria, your local barber, if you've started a business, we've all had the same journey. And so the faster you recognize that these highs and these lows that you're feeling is not the universe attacking you, but rather part of the process you have to go through to become this business owner, then the faster you start feeling confident in your decision making and your steps. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to protect you. As we say, protect your mind. That's what's going to protect your mind. And by protecting your mind, you're giving your business the best chance to succeed. So yes, you're going to have to do it alone in the beginning. That's a good sign. And when the moment you start feeling like they're out there by yourself is the time you need to recognize to build that support system of people that want to help, or tools that you think will help you, like this podcast. Subscribe. So that is my answer to your question. Again, love these questions, love the community that we're building. To me, I stand by the words I said during episode 1, season 1. If I'm only helping one person, this is all well worth the time, energy, and effort. I really do want to see you do well, and I'll see you next week.